Welcome back to Rapture Tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get ready for another story you won't forget. Let's dive back to the story. Edward Harrington was a man feared and admired in equal measure. As CEO of Harrington Industries, he commanded respect, yet he carried a secret few knew. He was allergic to women. Even the smallest proximity caused sneezing, rashes, or sometimes near collapse, forcing him into isolation despite immense success. Society, family, and colleagues all expected him to settle down, whispering about his loneliness and making his life unbearable. Pressured and desperate, Edward conceived an audacious plan. Hire someone to pretend to be his fiancée, a stage romance to silence critics and preserve his reputation. Lydia Bennett, a poor cleaner struggling to survive, answered Edward's unusual request. The promise of financial security and a temporary escape from hardship made her agree. She met a man who was intimidating yet oddly vulnerable, whose wealth masked a deep loneliness. Their arrangement began as a performance, each pretending for different reasons. Yet, as they spent time together, boundaries blurred. Edward's allergy, which had defined his life, strangely disappeared in Lydia's presence. What started as a lie began to twist into something neither expected, a bond that hinted at possibilities beyond pretense. At first, Edward kept Lydia at arm's length, maintaining his cold, composed exterior. He monitored every gesture, every word, ensuring the act remained convincing while keeping his emotions in check. But Lydia's sincerity and warmth slowly chipped away at his walls. She had a quiet strength, a resilience shaped by hardship, and a humor that diffused the tension he had built around himself, though he never admitted it. He began to anticipate her presence, to crave conversations that previously would have triggered panic. It unsettled him, yet in ways that felt strangely comforting. Lydia, meanwhile, learned to navigate Edward's complex world. She adapted to his routines, to the grand offices and lavish events, masking her nervousness with poise. She watched the reactions of board members, family, and acquaintances, realizing the power of her role and the precariousness of their arrangement. Despite the pretense, she felt a growing empathy for Edward, seeing glimpses of a man trapped by his own affliction and expectations. She began to wonder if perhaps they both needed the charade more than they realized, if the lie could evolve into something that healed both their lives. Events escalated when Edward's family demanded a formal engagement announcement. Pressure mounted, and Edward realized the act could no longer remain private. They navigated dinners, social gatherings, and casual scrutiny, each encounter stretching the limits of Edward's tolerance. Yet, he noticed something remarkable. Lydia's presence no longer triggered allergic reactions. Confused and intrigued, he found himself laughing at jokes, sharing small moments, and feeling emotions long suppressed. The arrangement was no longer merely a shield for appearances. It was awakening feelings he had thought impossible. Lydia, too, was changing. She discovered a life beyond constant struggle, learning confidence and subtle influence in Edward's world. But she also sensed the danger of the growing attachment. This was not just a temporary job anymore. The line between truth and pretense blurred with every shared glance, every quiet conversation. She wrestled with her own feelings, uncertain if the man she pretended to love could ever truly love her, or she would have to surrender her heart to an illusion that could collapse at any moment. Tension heightened when Dominic Carlyle, a rival in the corporate world, began questioning Edward's decisions, hinting at the unusual circumstances of his engagement. Edward faced the prospect of exposure, forcing him to act decisively while masking vulnerability. Lydia stepped in, her cleverness and insight helping him navigate traps he would never have anticipated. In these shared challenges, trust began to blossom, not from obligation, but from genuine reliance. Their bond deepened quietly, yet unmistakably, bridging gaps neither thought possible. The turning point came during a charity gala, where Edward was expected to appear charming and untouchable. Normally, such events would have triggered severe reactions, yet with Lydia beside him, he experienced none. He realized the truth. His allergy was psychological, a manifestation of fear and isolation, dissipating only in the presence of someone he trusted completely. He was simultaneously exhilarated and terrified. Lydia had become indispensable, and he was confronting emotions he had spent decades denying, discovering love in a space he thought forbidden. As weeks passed, public perception of their engagement solidified. Friends and family expressed relief and curiosity, unaware of the arrangement's origins. Edward and Lydia, however, now struggled with their own feelings. What began as a protective facade had transformed into real intimacy. Every shared meal, every conversation, every quiet moment in the office brought a new layer of understanding. Edward, who had once avoided human contact, began to feel the warmth of companionship, discovering that vulnerability could be as empowering as control. Conflict arose when a scandal threatened to expose their secret. A journalist caught whispers of the unusual engagement, publishing hints that threatened both reputations. Edward, accustomed to handling crises with detachment, found himself uncharacteristically anxious. Lydia remained calm, demonstrating courage and ingenuity that surprised him. Together, they confronted the challenge, their teamwork solidifying a bond that started as mere pretense but had evolved into mutual reliance. Each challenge stripped away layers of fear, revealing emotions neither anticipated. In private moments, Edward allowed himself glimpses of the man he could become: open, vulnerable, capable of love. Lydia's kindness and patience were catalysts, slowly dissolving decades of isolation. He began to speak freely, laugh without fear, and even touch without dread. Lydia, observing these changes, recognized a profound transformation occurring. She saw a man reclaiming humanity, a man who could finally embrace life fully, and she felt both pride and love for the role she had unknowingly played in his metamorphosis. Family dynamics became more complex as Edward's sister, Victoria Harrington, began probing, curious about Lydia's background. Edward had to defend not just their arrangement, but also the truth of his feelings, a task that forced him to confront personal fears and societal expectations. Lydia, standing by his side, demonstrated grace under scrutiny, winning over skeptics with quiet intelligence and empathy. Their relationship, though forged in artifice, had become an unshakable partnership, a union built on trust, respect, and growing love. Romantic tension heightened during a weekend retreat, where Edward and Lydia were isolated from prying eyes. In the quiet moments, their facade began to dissolve completely. Edward admitted vulnerabilities he had never voiced. Lydia shared dreams she had kept hidden. Their connection deepened into something undeniable. The allergies that once ruled his life had vanished entirely, a symbol of the emotional barrier he had broken down. It was no longer about pretense or survival. It was about mutual affection, the spark of real love emerging from a manufactured scenario. External pressures continued, but the couple learned to navigate them together. Business rivals, family opinions, and societal expectations became mere background noise. Their focus shifted inward, exploring shared dreams and desires. Edward discovered joy in simple moments: a walk, a shared cup of tea, a quiet conversation late into the night. Lydia, once trapped by circumstance, now felt agency, influence, and empowerment. Together, they found balance, a harmony neither had expected when the arrangement began. Emotional stakes increased when Lydia faced an unexpected personal crisis. Edward, for the first time in his life, reacted not with calculation, but with heartfelt concern. He became a protector, a confidant, a partner in every sense. The lines between employer and employee, pretense and reality, vanished. Lydia's gratitude and love grew in response, solidifying their bond. They realized that the stage engagement had blossomed into genuine partnership, a love both transformative and enduring. Trust, once fragile, became the foundation of their lives. Edward shared secrets he had hidden for decades, fears and memories that shaped his aloofness. Lydia listened, offering understanding without judgment, teaching him the power of acceptance. In turn, Edward celebrated her resilience and ingenuity, acknowledging the depth of her character. Together, they cultivated intimacy, discovering that love built on empathy, respect, and vulnerability was stronger than any facade. A crisis at the company tested their union. A sudden financial threat required Edward to rely fully on Lydia's counsel. Her insights, practical wisdom, and calm demeanor proved invaluable, saving both his business and reputation. Edward recognized that Lydia had become not just a partner in appearance, but a true ally. The line between obligation and desire had disappeared entirely. In these trials, their love solidified, no longer dependent on secrecy or circumstance, but on genuine admiration and trust. Public appearances became effortless. Edward could now move among colleagues and family without fear, his confidence bolstered by Lydia's unwavering support. Rumors of his strange past and allergy faded into irrelevance. Their engagement, once a cover, now reflected reality. Every handshake, every glance, Every shared laugh demonstrated a bond born necessity, but nurtured into authenticity. The world saw a powerful couple. They knew the depth of transformation that had occurred. Romantic intimacy blossomed naturally. Small touches, shared jokes, and whispered conversations replaced the stiff formality of pretense. Edward, who had spent a lifetime avoiding connection, now sought it actively. Lydia, who had navigated poverty and hardship, found comfort and equality in the relationship. Together, they explored emotions and desires long denied. The stage engagement had evolved into a true partnership, fulfilling needs neither had fully acknowledged at the outset. Finally, Edward confronted his deepest fears: vulnerability, attachment, and the risk of genuine love. He realized that the allergy, once a source of shame and isolation, had been a barrier only until he found someone worthy of trust. Lydia had not only healed his fears, but awakened him to life, companionship, and love. They shared quiet moments, understanding that the pretense had ended and reality had begun, a reality far richer and more satisfying than either could have imagined. In the culmination of their journey, Edward and Lydia solidified their bond with mutual declarations of love. What began as a scheme to protect appearances had transformed both their lives. Edward discovered that power and wealth were hollow without connection, and Lydia realized that courage, intelligence, and kindness could alter destinies. Together, they stepped into the future, not as employer and employee, but as equals, partners, and lovers, ready to face the world unafraid and united. Their lives, once dictated by fear, circumstance, and societal expectations, now reflected choice, trust, and mutual respect. Every challenge they had faced, every crisis navigated, and every secret revealed had strengthened the foundation of their relationship. Edward Harrington, the man once defined by isolation and fear, had found completeness in Lydia Bennet, the woman he had hired as a facade, but came to love deeply. Their story became a testament to transformation, love, and the extraordinary ways life could surprise even the most guarded hearts. And so, the billionaire CEO allergic to women and the humble cleaner he had hired to pretend to be his fiancée discovered that love could bloom from the most unlikely of circumstances. Pretenses faded, fears vanished, and what remained was authentic, enduring, and profoundly transformative. Together, Edward and Lydia embraced a future neither could have imagined at the start, a life of shared dreams, mutual respect, and a love born from deception but matured into truth. That's all for today. Like, subscribe, and see you in the next episode. Stay tuned.